Hello, in this video we'll take a look at how you can generate a Word document with C Sharp. In this case we're using .NET 9, but other options are available. You can explore the actual documentation, which it is quite encouraged to do. You always have to check whether it's Word or Excel. It is best practice to actually check if it works with your version and also if it works with your arrangement, whether it be a Blazor or WPF or some kind of Android arrangement. Most likely these days it would be .NET MAUI. But it is a good idea to check that out. Now, this can generate all kinds of things. As you can see here, we have the paragraph, but then we also have a table, and the paragraphs, they also have different colors, different fonts you can add, different sizes, lots of different things you can do. More or less, all the sort of, at least the more important features that you would have in the actual Word. But if we go into the actual code, we can see we have the document, first of all. Now, any sort of library, whether it's Excel or PowerPoint or whatever it is, with Microsoft Office, you will need to sort of start with some generic file as such. Now, in this case, it is a document. In Excel, it would be a workbook. So you start with that and you start building on that. You start building all that stuff in memory, and then at some point you actually save it as a file. That's generally how all of these libraries would work and would behave. In this case, we of course have a document. Now, to have that document, we need to go to the NuGet packages and we need to install something. And what that something is this NPOI. NPOI. Now, perhaps not a very generic name, perhaps a bit of a strange name, but that is what the package is called. Generally, you might actually call the whole library NPOI XWPF, which makes it even more confusing, but that is what it's called, and it is usable and it does work, and you can read about it, of course, directly, which it is encouraged to do. In this case, the example is on C# .NET 9. For whatever version you are using, you should reference that. This is a direct C# .NET library that we are looking at. There is no comms involved, so there is none of that stuff. It should be portable, but again, before using any of these, especially anything MS Office related, you should run a tiny sample before actually trying and attempting to put it in production or even in your test runs, just to see if it actually works in your environment with your specific needs, whether it be Blazor, whether it be WPF, some kind of API thing. You should check that out and make sure it actually can work. Now, going forward, we have the XWPF paragraph, which it is kind of straightforward. It will create a paragraph, which we can then add to the actual Word document, which we kind of add directly, but then we sort of implement it properly. Now, in some cases, again, if you compare it to different libraries, you might create something like paragraph. Paragraph, perhaps you wouldn't create, but you would create an image, and then you add the image into the actual document. In this case, you kind of create it directly into it, but then you sort of position it, and that's what we are doing here. So we do paragraph 1, alignment, we center it, and then we create run, so it actually sort of, well, works. We create it essentially into the document, which is a very interesting concept, but that's unfortunately how it all has to go down in these document scenarios. Now, once you have these runs, and you'll notice we have a run 1, XWPF run, create run. So once you have that stuff, essentially it's sort of kind of added to the document, and you can set all the properties of it. So font size, font families, and all the other things. If we go right here into it, you can see right here, you can also add character spacing. So lots of different things that you can add that's available in the actual Word itself. It's certainly, mostly at least, going to be available in here as well. The second paragraph, again, is exactly the same. We create paragraph. The two most important parts here: we create paragraph, and then we create run. Now, for paragraph itself, we create alignment, and then we do the run. The run itself, what it is the text. Now, if you've ever used certain XAML arrangements, you may be already familiar with this. Sort of a very, very similar concept. You create some kind of a text holder, text box as such, it might be, and then you put runs. So runs, basically different pieces of text that go into paragraph, and you can have each run basically be different. Like one might be italic, so if you're writing a couple of sentences, you want to sort of make something more visible, you do a bold on that or italic on that, but then you have to do the part before that one run, and the other run is that part, which you make different, and then another run is that run. So you can add these runs as many as you want. That's kind of how it works, similar to some of the XAML arrangements, like in WPF and things like that. So these are basically generic things. We have the text, so run, essentially run would be a text, right? In simple words, it would be a text. So, and for that we can add italic true, bold true, whatever true, or not true, or false, or a size, or a number, or most importantly, probably the actual text. Let's not forget that, set text. We don't add text, so it wouldn't be like you might think text. It's best to do set text, so you actually set the text. But that's kind of how it goes. Now, also, you can find all this example and many other examples on Patreon. There's also some free courses on Patreon if you subscribe. Code samples you get free courses that are very valuable as well for very little subscription. Very, very good deal. Now, the next thing is the table. Tables, so we can add the rows and the columns. Of course, it's a very simple concept. If we go back to just quickly to the Microsoft Word, we can actually insert a table. So if we insert the table, you can see right here, this would be 3x2 table, and this would be 3x3, so we insert this table. Now, in this case, getting back to Visual Studio, we simply do it via the C# code. Nothing really changes, the whole concept doesn't change, we're just doing it in a different way, but still, we need the rows, and we need the columns. Now, later you can actually modify them and adjust the tables however you want. You can merge cells and all that, but just as a simple thing, we can do it like that. Now, it does get a little bit tricky at this point. We have our row number, we have our column number, and we establish the table, just like we established the paragraphs, which was far more easier. But there is no sort of straightforward way to actually create a table. Now, by default, we create that generic table that you saw in the document that I have created just manually, which realistically is not good enough. Now, you can fill everything just by doing a simple sort of algorithm like this. You loop through the rows basically, and in each row you loop through each row's column. So if we go back here just quickly, you basically would start at this, so say R1, C1, right? And then in that loop, you would go down to R2, C2, but then specifically in that loop that we have there, you would just go through a column. So the second part that you would be adding would be R1, C1, so row, or rather 2. So row 1 and column 2. Very simple, right? Sort of, in a way. But essentially, there is one part that really, really matters, and that is how you access that particular cell. And that is this, XWPF, table cell. That is what we use, the type that we use, and to get it, we get to the table. So if you want to have some kind of an interface, you'll need to make this accessible throughout that interface. Probably not necessarily a static thing throughout your whole application if you have like WPF or something like that, but just sort of accessible so that user can adjust it or not adjust it. Of course, if you have API, it's a bit of a different thing. It will probably be handled automatically. But that is kind of how it goes. So you basically get row and you get the cell. Relatively straightforward arrangement, although we would probably consider cell as a specific thing. But in this case, as you can see, we have this J, which is a column. So get cell would be more like essentially a column for a specific row, right? So you get row 1, and you access column, say 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever the column is. So that is a better way to explain it, but it is named a cell because we are essentially getting a cell, but you are going through that as a column. You don't have like a cell name, cell reference specifically. Now, in this example, we once again just add a paragraph, and in a paragraph, we add a run, which is a piece of text essentially. So we just add those things. And then in the end, they will be added to those different cells essentially. That's all we are doing. So right here, we have a cell. In a cell, we add a paragraph. That is where the reference begins to the paragraph. So there's no like creating a paragraph and adding it to the cell, or assigning it to the cell somewhere in the end. It is more like we create a paragraph and in that cell, and then we work with that reference directly. Now, whether it's good or bad, it depends on the use case, but it is what it is. And then after that, again, it's the same kind of adding text as we added in all the normal arrangements. Nothing has changed at all. We have is bold, true, is italic, is true, and then we set the text for some of these things as well. But the way we set the text is we set through columns and rows, but that is just for specific columns and rows, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect the general arrangement. The main important thing to remember here is that we always start with creating something inside something where we want it to be displayed. So right here, getting back to that original paragraph, we have paragraph 1. We have some stuff about the paragraph itself, the alignment of the paragraph that comes from the paragraph. It's kind of like if you had a P in HTML, you would create the assignments of these alignments in the actual P. You would do it in the style of P. But then you might have spans and things like that inside the P, so that sometimes would influence that. But in this case, that's how we do it. So yeah, and we have the run, and then we set the run, and that's already inside that. And now we just get to the final part. In this case, it will write the current domain. If you want to use this particular example, though, you can rewrite it and do it to something like My Documents and do directories. There is a video about that, a very good video, how you can save to My Documents specifically on any computer without changing anything else. How you can get those specific directories. Very, very useful video. Take a look at that. But in this case, it will just save, basically, if you go here to the project, you go to the File Explorer and you go to bin, you go to debug, that's where the project is actually built. That's where it will display this sample word.docx file. And then just some basic writing of the document. As you can see, it is a simple file stream, essentially, that we create. Of course, we use Word doc to actually write it, because it's not just a text file or some binary file. Well, it is a binary file, essentially, but it's not just a simple one. And then, of course, the most important thing in the world when working with any kind of a file, you must not ever forget to close it, flush it, dispose it, and all those different things. Make sure that never interferes with anything, because you first of all have to release the resources properly, and then you also have to release them properly in order for them to actually be flushed into your, well, hard drive as such, into your storage, because otherwise it will just stay in the memory. You'll close the application and it will be not saved. You'll see an empty file. So make sure to remember that. But all this code is on Patreon for a very, very low fee, just a couple of dollars to join monthly. And there are also free courses on Blazor, on C#, on other things, and just lots of different code samples and things to explore as well. And with that said, we will conclude this video.